lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, breaking out, breaking out. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul.
What's up, students? Thank you guys so much for joining us again on Grace Pointe Students Online this week. We have with us this week
Me!
Lily. And before we get started, we're going to play a game. You want to play a game?
I want to play a game.
All right, so this game that we're going to play this week is called Bring 'em to the Cross. And you probably have never heard of that game before. People always say that you can find God in the small things. You can find God in everything. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take movie plots of Disney movies and we're going to bring them to the cross.
Bring him to the cross.
We're going to take plots and we're going to over-spiritualize and over-dramatize, and we're going to bring them to the cross. Let's do this.
Just like our little ruffian and thug friends in Tangled, we have a dream. You know who took that dream thing one step farther? God. He turned his dream into a plan. And he has a plan to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future.
Come on, preach it.
When will your life begin, you may ask? You can begin your life with Jesus right now.
Woo, come on. Woo. When times are changing, it's easy to feel like we're unimportant and that those around us don't care about us anymore. But we can't get overwhelmed. We can't forget how much we are loved, how much we have a friend in God. How much he is a friend of sinners. That we have been marked by him. That we are made in his image. Come on. Come on, we have to remember that he chases down after us. He comes after us. We are his. We are marked by the Creator. Come on. We have a friend in Jesus.
Hakuna Matata. It means no worries for the rest of our days. You know who else said that? God. Ooh. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. So let's cast our worries upon the one who cares for us and have a little, can you feel the weight lifted off of you tonight?
Oh! Some things never change. Some things stay the same. And that is the voice that is calling you into the unknown. Wow. We don't have to be scared. We don't have to fear. We don't have to ignore that voice. But if we follow that voice, he never leaves us. He never abandons us. But he's leading us into the unknown, leading us into the place where he reveals our destiny to us. And he shares with us, and he shows us that we are a greater part of his story than we could have ever imagined.
I need to be serious for this one. I have to. Okay. When you hear the phrase, 0 to hero, who do you think of? Oh, Hercules, huh? Never heard of him. I think of Paul. The OG 0 to hero himself. Now, if Paul can go from a murderous Christ hater to a zealous Christian maker, so can you. Yes. Just like Hercules was not measured by his strength, but by his heart, so are you.
Come on. Sometimes we come to a place in our life where we're looking for something. We're looking for something greater than our current situation. But the problem is we look for it in all the wrong places, and we're led down paths that lead to destruction. And here's what the enemy wants to do. The enemy wants to take your voice and make you voiceless. The enemy wants to cripple you and take the gift that God has given you and remove it from you. And the thing is we can't give up, because the enemy will not win at the end, but God will prevail. And he will give us, and he will restore us back to our form in which the enemy tried to destroy in the first place. But we have to continue to press on, not give up. You have a voice. Sing.
Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore.
Yes, girl.
While Elsa may be referring to her cold, dark secret, maybe you have your own burden weighing on you. And I say, let it go and let God. Turn away from your sin and slam the door.
Yes.
Walk with him in freedom and light. The weight never bothered him anyway.
Oh! Don't sleep on the tale as old as time. Because here's the thing. At the heart of every issue is a hard issue. And the thing is there's a beast inside of each and every one of us that can take control of our lives. And the thing is we can be trapped in a curse of our sin. But if we allow the love of Christ to come and live and dwell inside of us, he will set us free from the curse of sin and take that beast and remove him as far as the west is to the east. What's up, Grace Pointe students? This week we wanted to do something a little different, a little special. I'm excited about it. I got Jaden here with me.
What up, Grace Pointe?
Man, I've known Jaden forever. Many years, seen him grow up, and we're just going to kind of talk tonight. I'm not really going to preach. I think God kind of changes things up on purpose and for a reason, and we're in this series called In the Middle, and it's from Psalm 131. This is what it says. In Psalms 131, verses 1 through 3, it says, "O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me." And this is where we're going to kind of camp at tonight. It says this, "But I have calmed and quieted my soul." The word calmed in that verse in the Hebrew, it means to make level. So the picture is like a field that has uneven territory or terrain. They would go in there and they would level it out. And David is saying that he has found a way to level his soul and keep himself grounded. Lots of pressure and stress and all of those things. And as a king, David felt all of those things. He felt pressure, he felt stress, he felt anxiety, he felt all of those things. And so in the midst of that, he says, listen, I've calmed and quieted my soul. I've leveled myself off. What we're going to talk about tonight is just honestly living authentically. Because I think a lot of us, if we ask ourselves this question, how authentic are we really? When it comes to our everyday life, how authentic are we, or are we striving to live and be something that we're not? So kind of just think about this question. Do I live according to who I really am? Or do I live according to who people perceive me to be or want me to be? And I think that plays in not only with Generation Z, but I think with all generations, we have people's perceptions of us. And we change ourselves and try to live as maybe not who we really are, but who people think and say that we are. And so this is kind of where Jade and I had this conversation last week after our high school Zoom call. We just talked for like 20, 30 minutes about teenagers in this generation and how finding your identity and being secure in who you are is kind of tough because there's so many expectations. There's stress, there's anxiety, there's social media, which is really kind of challenging us to whether we're being authentic or whether we're not. Just kind of share your heart. Like, how do you think that plays into a teenager's life?
Well, it's very true because some of us we try to be who we're not meant to be, and we look at other people and we try to compare our lives with other people. But when God has a calling on your life and you're just getting constantly thrown distractions, like you can be what you want to be, and you're just not going to be happy with yourself.
Yeah. So how does that affect the outward faith of somebody your age or in middle school and high school? How does that perception of trying to be something you're not, how does that affect your faith on an everyday basis?
Well, a lot of us, we try to let God transform us into something we want to be instead of what he wants to be. Yeah. So that kind of like plays a role in our faith because we're telling God, okay, I'm gonna give it all to you, but this is what I want to be. Instead of God, I'm gonna give it all to you. How about you tell me what I'm meant to be?
Yeah, that's really good. Going back to that passage, you see David, he was a king. He was a popular guy. He was almost like he was a local celebrity. And in that psalm, David is saying, like, listen, I know people probably see me a certain way. They have opinions about me, thoughts of how I should reign and rule, the decisions that I make. People have an opinion on all of those things. But what he's going to do is he says, listen, I found a way to level my life and live from who I genuinely am. I'm not going to try to strive to be something that I'm not. And kind of the story that came into my head as just kind of thinking through this was the story in 2 Samuel when David orchestrates the Ark of the Covenant to come back to Jerusalem. And as a king, right, he made that decision, and the Ark is coming back into town, and he takes off his kingly robe, right, his kingly attire, and he actually he's not naked, which a lot of people think, but he's in his priestly attire, and he's literally dancing in the street as the presence of God comes in to the city. And the people's response to that was horrifying. People were judging him. People were calling him out and saying just how much of a disgrace he was as a king for acting that way, because that wasn't the characteristics that a typical king would display in that day. And so people had all opinions on how he was, how he should have reacted, how he should have been living. And his response was great. He didn't care what anybody was saying. He was actually saying, listen, we have a reason to worship, a reason to celebrate, because we're in the presence of God. He found a way to be secure in who he was, that it didn't matter what anybody else thought. He knew that worshiping and celebrating and being who he genuinely was the most important and what God desired for him to be. Like, he was not too proud to worship God. He was living from who he really was. Even though he was a king, he was still just that shepherd. He never forgot who he was. Why do you think that's so hard for teenagers to recognize who they really are?
Well, mainly because once you find out who you are, you get constantly attacked. And like, this is like from my personal experience. Like, once I found out that I wanted to be in the ministry, I kept on getting attacked with my past life, just the things that I used to do wrong, just kept coming up in different ways. And a lot of us teenagers, we really don't want that. Like, a lot of us say, well, I'll believe in God in the future when life gets easier, and I just want to live my teenage life. We want to live the teen life. We want to live the worldly life, how the world tells us to live. Yeah. Party, go have fun. You're a kid just one time. But like, Jesus can take everything away and just snapping a finger, like Thanos.
Yeah. So you kind of shared a little bit, but how, at least in your own life, when you're actually trying to live out who God has called you to be, do you see the temptation and the persecution from peers or from the enemy? Do you see that actually amp up as you're trying to live out who God has really called you to be?
Yeah, I see it 24/7, man. Like, and of course I slip up. We're all human. We're gonna slip up, but I don't slip up constantly like I used to. Yeah. Like, I see it all the time with dealing with drugs and lust. Like, it's just the constant reminder, because once you expose yourself to it, and it's a worldly desire, like, you're going to be attached more to it. Yeah. But it's until you break those chains and you clarify that, okay, God, this is what you want with me. Yeah. I'm going to try to live it out the best I can. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm going to try to live it out the best I can. Yeah. But yeah, I see constant temptations 24/7 with friends. The way I word things, I might use a little profanity, but the constant reminder that I tell myself is, don't go back to your past life. Like, there's nothing there good for you. Just like Peter went back to a fisherman after Jesus died. Jesus came back.
Yeah, he thought he was going to go back to his old life and it was going to be fulfilling, but he got nothing.
Kept on getting no fish. And I just have that constant reminder, just don't go back. Yeah. And God has told me, like, it's okay, you're gonna slip up. You're not me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's super relevant. And when we start living from who we really are, like, we get attacked. And I think David saw that too in his life. Like, he knew that the attack from the enemy and that the people's expectations were going to try to change who he really was. And it takes work to live from who you are, not trying to live for something you're not. And I think he mastered that, because he continued to worship, and he allowed basically himself to live for the audience of God and God alone. Now, because of, I'm not knocking on social media. I think social media has great aspects to it, but I think it opens up a world where we are now experiencing things that, like, celebrities experience, right? Where you have a following, and there's a pressure with the following to live a certain way, or to post certain things, just literally to get likes and to get seen and to gain more followers. And we fall into this pressure of putting up a fake persona so that we can get those likes, so we can get those followers, and then we find ourselves trapped. How have you seen friends or people that you know compromise their own beliefs to please and find their identity in what others might say?
It's naturally, like, in us. Like, we want approval from others. Yeah. And I think the hardest thing is to recognize that you're already approved by God.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, there's a saying, like, you could be in church but so far away.
When you were in a place where your environment was destructive for the most part, and your group of friends was really leading you down a specific path, I'd see you one way here and another way online, or I'd see you coming here and just kind of checking out, as opposed to coming here and checking in and listening and engaging. And I think that's a trap that we fall into, of trying to gain acceptance from people. It changes who we really are, and then we end up living a lie, and we get caught in a cycle. And In Galatians 1:10 it says this. It says for am I seeking the favor of men or God, or am I striving to please men? If I were still pleasing men, I should not be a servant of Christ. And I think that is just something that, like, we can't fall into the trap of trying to please other people above pleasing God. Because, like, listen, God is the one that fulfills all the desires that we're really looking for. We just have to continue to remember what God says about us, who God says we are. Because the opinions of man is always going to change. And the thing that I love about God, and the thing that I think David realized, is that God's opinion of him never changed. No matter how he messed up, no matter the wrong decision he made, his identity in Christ was always the same. Because you have success with people and approval from people 1 minute, and then the very next day it's changed. Yeah. And you have to change yourself, and it's an exhausting lifestyle. How do students your age and younger or older, how do we find a way to thrive in this culture and living in the middle of really finding out who we really are?
I'd have to say a lot of prayer, and it's like with King David, how he took down Goliath. It's like the giant is in our path, and once we take it down, the army flees. Yeah. So, like, if you're holding on, not even if you're going through anxiety, insecurity, or depression, once you knock down that one big thing, the things that came with the depression and the anxiety all go away. Yeah. And the thing about David is that he cut off Goliath's head to make sure that he was dead. Yeah. And some of us, we just knock down the giant. Yeah. And then the army comes back and the giant rises back up again. Yeah. It's until we cut off the anxiety, the depression, the whatever addiction we went through, or your past life, the blames that you hold on to your dad or your mom, the abuse that you got. It's not until we cut off the head of that giant. And I'm not saying that it completely goes away. Yeah. It's like I was cleaning my room, and I kept on cleaning and kept on cleaning. Yeah. And I was like, dang, why does my room keep getting dirty and dirty? It wasn't until I took out the stuff that I didn't need. Yeah. And my room became much more cleaner. I'm not going to say that.
That's a good thought.
I'm not going to say that it's not going to get dirty again.
Yeah.
But it's just less dirt.
Yeah. That's good. Cleaning house, get rid of some of the stuff that you don't need. Like a lot of those lies and all of those things that you believed. To remove those things doesn't mean there's not going to be like a residue from that. But like it like you said, like it cleans up the clutter a little bit when you remove some of those things. I think David always went back to worship. Yeah. Like that's what he did. He was worshiping in the street, right? And I think worship is so important because here's the thing I love about worship is it reminds us who God is, and it also reminds us who we are. Yeah. And I think when you worship, it puts God in his right place, and I think when we worship, it puts us in our right place as well, so that we get a right perspective of who we are. We don't allow ourselves to get too big or get too small, but it keeps us level because it always brings us back to our true identity. As we're worshiping God and we're praising and singing who he is, we're children of his, and we're sitting in his grace, and we're sitting in his love, and we're sitting in his mercy. And no matter what the rest of the world is saying about us, in moments of worship, you remind yourself just who you are. It's scary how quick we can lose ourselves. Yeah. And more than ever, I think we need to be people of worship. Yeah. I think we need to follow in the footsteps of David, keeping ourselves level so that like when these things arise that are out of our control, we can still live from who we are, not striving to be something that we're not. And I think you said it perfectly in our conversation when we were talking about this and how easy it is to get lost and forget who we are. And you brought up the story of Peter when he was walking on water.
It wasn't until Peter looked at the wind is when he began to sink. Yeah. And people don't really talk about the walk was so calm in the storm. Yeah. But our walk can be so calm in the storm. But it's as soon as we stop being focused on what's in front of us, which is Jesus, and we start looking at the wind, is when we begin to sink. Yeah. And I see this all the time with a lot of young teenagers and beginning their adult life.
Yeah.
Like, we can be so on fire for Jesus,
Yeah.
but one little thing, one little wind, a little breeze
Yeah.
gets thrown at us, and we just look the other way, and
Yeah.
we begin to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And once you go down, instead of calling for help, we can go back to our past life, and we can go back to the things that we're just going to keep digging the hole and digging the hole.
I think that's key, because I think the longer we continue to live as something we're not, it's hard to change that. And you feel lost, and you feel helpless, because you have a rep to protect. You have a persona to make sure you uphold. And I think we lose out on true intimacy with friends and with mentors and people who really want to help us, because we have to act like everything's fine. And we can't be too prideful to ask for help. We can't be too prideful to reach out and grasp on the people who are going to bring us back to shore, or to reach out to God, who is literally right there, who wants to give us that abundant life. I think adults, I think students, I think everybody is striving to find purpose in life. I think we're trying to find love. I think we're trying to find happiness. I think we're trying to find peace. I think we're trying to find all of those things. And the great lie of the enemy just tries to tell us that we can find it everywhere but God. Yeah. And the thing is God provides all of those things for us. Mm-hmm. And so the most fulfilling life that we can live is actually living from who we really are. Yeah. And I think David figured that out. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of wanted to close with this verse. It says this in Matthew chapter 16, verse 24 through 26. It says, "And Jesus said this to his disciples." He said this to his followers. "You must turn from your selfish ways and take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it, or you will find it. And what benefit is it for you to gain the whole world but lose your soul? Is anything worth more than your soul?" I think that's it. It strives back to surrender. It's surrendering to who God has called you to be, who God has created you to be, and living from that in a confidence, not wavering, but staying fixed and staying confident, is a way that we can navigate in the middle of life. What matters is what God says, because to him, you are everything. You were enough that he sent his son for us, right? Like he bankrupted heaven so that we could have a chance to have a relationship with him. That's love. That's identity. That's saying, man, I'm crazy about you. I'm going to pursue you like nobody ever will. And we got to hold on to that.
I just want to share a quick story how I surrendered to God. Like, I never grew up with a father in my life. Like, I never had that father figure to tell me what right and wrong is. But so I never grew up with my dad, and then my mom was gay. So then my mom gives her life to Christ, and she's like, "This is not what God called me to do. I don't want to be this way anymore." So then I get put in a situation where a guy comes in my life, my stepfather at the time, and I was like, dude, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I never had like a dad. I never had a man in front of me to teach me what right and wrong is. Little to find out, that was a whole, eraser, get the pen and eraser, and all that stuff. And I was just constantly mad at God, like, where's my father at? Because the world likes to tell you that you need a man in your life if you want to become a man.
Yeah.
And I was just always mad at God, and like, why don't I have a man in my life?
Yeah.
Like, I want what other kids have. And I was just asking God, like, I just want a dad. Like, and through that whole process, me and God got closer. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the most I've ever talked to God, just asking him, I want a dad.
Yeah.
And me being blind, not seeing that is my true father, and he will love me unconditionally. Me being blind in that still made me stronger with me and him in his relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's just beautiful, because we can be blind to the lesson he's trying to teach,
Yeah.
but still become stronger
Yeah.
in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a good 14 years to find out that I don't necessarily need a man in my life
Yeah.
when I have God,
Yeah.
who is God. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely true. God has a way of coming into our lives and changing everything. You didn't allow that to destroy your faith, but you allowed that to be the thing that, and God actually used to transform your faith. Yeah. And really build you and grow you and mold you into who God has created and is creating you to be. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's awesome. So I just want to say I'm proud of you, man. Like, I know this isn't easy. I know life hasn't been a smooth ride for either of us, but to see where you were and to see where you are, I'm inspired, I'm encouraged, and man, I'm excited for what God has for you moving forward. So be praying for this guy. If you don't know him, get to know him. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and he's pretty awesome. So let's pray us out, and thank you all so much for watching. Father, Lord, we thank you for today. Lord, we thank you for these moments that we can just talk about life. And God, I pray that you just spoke to somebody. God, you've been speaking to me and to Jaden, and you're just doing great things, Lord, and we just trust in you. And as we navigate this life, may the opinions of people never overshadow your opinions of us and what you think about us, and allow us to live from who we are, not for something that we're not, God. Allow us perspective in every situation and in this world, and give us wisdom so that we can be who you've called us to be. Lord, we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.